I've told the story before, so forgive me if you've heard it once or more than once. The only time anybody's ever walked out of the studio in an interview with me was somebody who, at the time, I don't know whether she is still regarded as a trends guru, Faith Popcorn, American. And she was in town to promote her latest book, and the book at the time was called Clicking, I think. And she was telling me about the trends that were going to establish themselves in the early years of the 21st century. And this was in our Bree Street studio, so this would have been in the 90s. And she was telling me that by 2010, nobody was going to be traveling physically. Nobody was going to go away on holiday because people would sit with VR headsets on, and they would have a much less expensive, much more immersive, far less hassle impacted holiday sitting at home with a VR headset on. And I said, I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. She said, I have looked at the trends and it is going to happen. I said, look, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. Well, if that's your attitude. And she got up and walked out of the studio. I'm just warning you, Kirsty. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, I wouldn't be able to walk out of the studio, but you could hang up on me in Zoom if you don't agree what I have to say here.
Just, I mean, I suppose it's easier to look at trends for a year ahead or a fashion season ahead than it is to look at trends over a next decade or a couple of decades.
I mean, it used to be used to look at trends over a couple of decades, but now even looking at trends over a year is challenging. Looking at trends over 3 months or a week lately can be challenging. So these kind of slots are always fun because I look back on them, in 11 months and see how accurate I am. So we'll see how we go here. But disclaimer on all of these trends, I think just assume that AI is going to underpin everything. No matter what we do, no matter what industry we're in, we can just assume that AI underpins everything. So if I don't bring it up today, don't don't come at me. It's always there. So
Yeah.
let's look at, yeah.
Okay. The reason before we get into the 5 areas of our lives, well, there are only 4 areas of my life because fashion and beauty aren't part of my life at all. But I'm going to be very interested in those trends, and part of the reason why it's very difficult to forecast is because you have stuff like TikTok, particularly, I think, which establishes a trend in the space of 24 minutes. And then there's a trend for, a couple of months, and then somebody else comes up with something. And that's one of the reasons, I would imagine, why trend forecasting is becoming more complicated. If you agree with me, what are perhaps some
Yes,
of the
definitely.
others?
Your virality that happens in an instant and kind of a flash in the pan virality is definitely impacting how trends are going. So let's kick off with fashion. So with fashion, we're looking at, while your kind of COVID years gave us the permission to go full goblin mode and encourage lounge dressing, fashion pros are saying that the industry is now completely experiencing a direct pushback on casual styles. So fashion this year, it's going to be very preppy, very girly, and we're really going to double down on clean, neat, and tailored aesthetics. And what that also means is that we're looking at sustainable clothing, which has really underpinned fashion and put a lot of pressure on fashion in the last few months and years. So very timeless pieces, investment pieces, layering because it's more affordable. But I think that a very fun trend that's going to come out of fashion is something called grandpa core. So grandpa styles and searches
I've
have
been
increased.
trendy for the last 60 years
You
then.
see, John, you've got this. So chic cardigans, customized clothing, retro streetwear, we're going to see quite a bit of that.
The
So moving
one,
out of the fashions,
sorry,
yeah.
if I may, the one I'm interested in is the sustainable fashion. People washing their clothes less often, people not ironing their clothes, looking for fabrics that don't need as much ironing as some fabrics
Mm.
need. Now, at the cutting edge of fashion, that's not going to happen. But I think at the world below fashion, where people are still buying clothes, I hope that people are going to think more about the cost, where those clothes come from, how they're made, who they're made by, what distances they
Mm.
are transported, what happens to them when
Yeah.
they are discarded, and all of those things.
your ethically sourced fashion, where
Yeah.
those clothes come from, how are they made? Yes, definitely. It's definitely a huge focus. And speaking of sustainability, moving on to the tech space, sustainability tech is going to continue to take center stage in 24. So we're looking at ways to continue to grow and prosper with tech while minimizing the damage we do to the environment and perhaps even reversing some of that again. So corporations or countries are all working on meeting their net zero commitments. A lot are looking at doing that in 2030, which is around the corner. Individuals are looking to increase, leveraging tech in order to minimize their personal impact on the environment. So things such as electric cars, bikes, public transport are going to continue to increase market share in 24. And then things like carbon capture, green and renewable energy tech, the circular economy are going to become increasingly important. So we're not just looking at tech at green tech, but we're looking at tech from a circular economy perspective, going right back to the design stage. So looking at how tech can be durable, how it can be recyclable, how it can be reusable, and built directly into product into the design stage. And then, of course, the tech, we have generative AI, which kind of found its feet in 23. But in 24, we're going to find new ways how to apply that to search engines, software, design packages, communication tools. We're going to kind of come to understand its potential fully because when it's used properly, it's like having a super smart PA on hand 24/7. So we're really going to learn how to apply generative AI more effectively this year.
Yeah, before we go on to business, I mean, Faith Popcorn would probably walk out on me with what I'm about to say. I mean, that the trend of sustainable tech, I just don't believe that's going to happen. I really don't. The idea that we're going to get beyond planned obsolescence, we're going to get beyond things being made not to last. I just can't see that we're going to give up the profit incentive of getting people to buy a new iPhone, a new Samsung, a new Huawei every year. That,
So I don't think it's about not purchasing, but
yeah,
like I said, going back right to the design stage and looking at, okay, if I have that
okay,
new iPhone, what is Apple going to do to make it more durable and recyclable when I chuck it out in 2 years?
okay. So let's move on to the third trend area, business.
I think that two key trends will take center stage with business in 24, and that's cyber resilience and upskilling. So cyber resilience, so if we look at research, about one in two businesses have been a victim of a cyber attack in the past 3 years alone. And the cost of these attacks is up to $10 trillion. So in the face of those threats, tech solutions are going to come up to bolster these defenses and provide us with kind of a fighting chance against cyber criminals. So cyber resilience, it goes beyond security. It's kind of looking at remote working procedures that can take place. It's looking at cyber defenses through AI, through machine learning. So I think that's going to be a huge focus for business this year. And then also upskilling. So looking at how employers will increasingly recognize the importance of reskilling and upskilling valuable workers, particularly, if we look at we have longer lifespans, later retirement, people are spending more time in the workforce. And also, Gen Z's kind of a penchant toward job hopping. So how are we going to upskill very valuable employees to make sure that they stay and that we nurture that skill?
The last two I am more interested in than in the first three because I'm more involved in the final two. The first of which is food and hospitality.
So food is going to oscillate quite vigorously between very virtuous food and very indulgent food. So on the virtuous side, I mean, this has been going on for a while. People are looking at, ultra processed foods as like and shunning it. Ultra processed foods are going to become like the junk food of 2024. And people are going to look at, again, that sustainability. Where is our food coming from? Last night on Netflix, I started watching that You Are What You Eat, and very interesting insight there. And then on the other side, we have very indulgent, in a very indulgent take. So people looking at unique snack innovations. So, you know, gummy clusters and things like flavored popcorn. And then something that's also, I think, going to take over the food space this year is K food, so Korean culture food. So if you're familiar with, how Korean culture has taken over so much in terms of music and film, I think it's going to take over a lot of what we eat as well. So if we think of things like dalgona coffee, which is Korean coffee, baristas will start making that, Korean fried chicken. I think that the Korean culture is going to start taking over the food space quite a bit this year too.
In early October 2022. So I'm getting confused with these years. I went to a very highly rated top-end Korean restaurant in New York, just off Fifth Avenue, and it's one of the best meals I've ever eaten in my life. It was
So good.
extraordinary.
So,
So
so
this is
good.
a trend I would absolutely welcome. To be able to have KFC would be fantastic. Korean fried
Oh
chicken.
no, you didn't.
I did. And music, which is my second love behind talk.
All right, so music also looking very futuristic but very nostalgic too. I think that we're going to see an uptake of jazz this year. So trading in kind of electronic beats for more retro music, including vintage jazz, which will then also affect jazz-inspired outfits, dimly lit venues, lo-fi looks. But then from a futuristic point of view, we're going to see, because of so many new technologies coming into music, it's going to further revolutionize the way music is created, the way it's consumed, the way it's experienced. And I think we're also going to enter into a new era of music festivals with very fresh concepts and innovative experiences for fans. So incorporating new tech, interactive elements, diverse lineups. And I think that artists are also going to be pushing boundaries and combining genres. I think that it's going to be tough to kind of pinpoint what genre a particular artist is playing in, because there's going to be this kind of amalgamation of various genres in order to kind of be individual and stand out in a very, very crowded music space.
I like the sound of that very, very much indeed. Kirsty Bisset, thank you. The first Trend Spotting Thursday of 2024.